Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday YouTube channel. I am your host, Ryan Hartley. This channel is for heart-centered leaders just like you. I hope our time spent together helps you leave a heartprint where those around you are left better than yesterday. These interview sessions are sponsored by our great friends at Elevate Online Marketing. On episode 183, I'm joined by Dalia Feldheim, who enables organizations to promote a more authentic, happier, and psychologically safe working culture. Dalia has had an executive career in the marketing industry and realized that she's all about women empowerment. She was on the leading team of campaigns such as Always Like a Girl in 2014, which Forbes recognized as one of the 10 most influential campaigns of the century. Dalia has written a book, once again reclaiming the phrase what it means to be like a girl, and the topic of that book is called Dare to Lead Like a Girl. We have a wonderful conversation about both the pain and the purpose of that phrase, what it means to dare to lead like a girl. It's a great conversation. I hope it empowers your leadership, and I hope that you share this episode with someone whose leadership that you wish to inspire and encourage too. You can read more about Dalia and the great work that she does as a leadership coach and an organizational psychologist at her website, daliafeldheim.com, which you will find in the show notes. Here we go. Episode 183 with Dalia Feldheim. Dalia, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you?
Good. Great to be here, Ryan.
I can't wait to dive into the title of your book, which is over your shoulder. So if anybody is listening on the podcast, go and check it out on YouTube. You'll see it there. But before we reveal the title of what it says, I love the tagline. It says, "How to survive and thrive in the corporate jungle." I would love to know a little bit about your journey through your corporate jungle.
How did I survive and thrive? So I started my journey back in 1998 when I studied psychology and business, and I was recruited by Procter and Gamble. I always had a passion. I thought I would be a neuroscientist, so continue in psychology, but P&G came to my campus for the first time. It was a big deal. Right. And I applied and I got in and we moved to Geneva. And I call those 17 years my years of flow. I don't know if you know the term, positive psychologist Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, who passed away last year. He basically coined the term, meaning almost like meditation in action, when you're so aligned with your purpose that you lose track of time. And I'll tell you a few stories later, but I lost track of time. I was high passion, 17 years working with amazing bosses that believed in me, and sometimes more than I believed in myself. My career rocketed. I think one of my most well-known campaign is Always Run Like a Girl, which we launched in 2014.
Tell us a little bit about that campaign.
Okay, so now do you want the whole story or one by one?
We'll come back to yeah. Continue your journey and then we'll come back to it.
I'll tell you about because I think that was also a big determinator. Yeah. Even before doing Always Like a Girl, I think the precursor was work in India. I'll tell you about that, and then we'll continue the flow. 2011. So I started in Geneva, moved to Moscow, moved to Singapore, and I was really grateful that I was able to live my purpose every day. As a marketing director, doing campaigns that changed life, and we'll talk about it. But also, I became a training junkie, I call myself. So P&G is very much a promotion from within. So we also believe in training from within. I went to every single train the trainer for every program and taught presentation skill, memo writing, but also people development course. So I very early on realized my passion is people empowerment and women empowerment specifically, and I was able to do it within my role. And I'll give you these two examples that you asked about. I'll start with India. 2011, we moved to Singapore, and India was my biggest market. I remember landing in Mumbai, and we're driving. It was 8 p.m., dark, and I see this girl sitting, outside in the outskirts of Mumbai, trying to read a book, but she didn't have any light, so she was literally reading to the light of the passing cars.
Wow.
For me, that stuck in my mind as the women of India, okay? The resilience, the commitment, the determination. The next day we go into in-home visits. Look, I become emotional just thinking about it. Okay.
Mm.
We're going to in-home visits. And, in-home, anyone that works in marketing is all about understanding unmet needs, their life, how we can create products that better meet their life. We walk in and I see this young girl, Isha, sitting on the floor. Okay. Her mom comes in and offers us drinks in china cups. And then she bends over and she offers Isha on the floor. And I'm like looking, and it was different cups. It was metal cups,
Mm.
like you would give an animal, right? And I noticed that Isha was sitting against this blue wall that was faded as if she sits there quite often.
Mhm.
She didn't get up the whole time of the interview. Towards the end, her aunts and uncles, two uncles and an aunt came in. And for a moment, when the uncles greeted her, I noticed this really sad, embarrassed look on Isha's face. When we
Mm.
walked out, I turned to my agency partner and I'm like, what was that all about? And she said, well, Dalia, she's on her period. And I said, so what? And then she told me, well, in India, we have a lot of myths about period. We believe that women on periods are impure. So we don't allow them to go into the kitchen or into prayer areas. And they sit and actually sometimes sleep on the floor. And, she jokingly added, and hey, we even believe if they touch pickles, they'll make them go sour, rotten,
Wow.
right? And I
Wow.
remember, I can tell you, Ryan, that night I couldn't
Mm.
sleep. I just kept having Isha's sad look on my face. And I'm like, and then I started learning, more about the women of India. So not only, do they have this habit of sitting on the floor, but their period really kind
Mm.
of holds them back. They don't use pads or tampons. They use cloth in many of the markets, 70% of women, which means they have all these infections when they need to walk kilometers through the jungle to school. So they don't even go to school a week, a month. You talk about women empowerment
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
equality, right? If you're not moving ahead, you're falling behind. And here they are missing a week, a month. So next morning, I call the agency and I'm like, listen,
Mm.
I couldn't sleep.
Mm.
We need to do something about it. I know it's cultural. And she's like, you know what? Yeah, me too. I researched it. It used to have a good origin to, help women, but it really kind of makes women and especially girls feel kind of left behind. Anyway, we got to work. I said, listen, I'm a foreigner and I know it's deeply cultural, but I think we need to do something about it. And 8 months later, we came out with a marketing campaign called I Dared, I Touched the Pickle. And we decided to use humor as a way to tackle it. And, that's when I realized I'm not in the business of selling pads. I'm in the business of women empowerment. That
Wow.
campaign, if I'm proud of something, I'm proud of many things in my career,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
probably that's the most. It went viral. We had a Bollywood actress that almost hit a report. I really started the conversation, on
Yeah.
women empowerment before Me Too, and there was TED Talks about it. It was really kind of a moment when I realized that, I'm living my purpose every single day. So that's
Mm.
kind of was my career, and actually that led to the Always Like a Girl in a way. We presented it to the global team, and of course it's very India specific, but we said we're not in the business of selling pads, we're in the business of women empowerment. And that
Yeah.
led to the brief. And I don't like taking credit for this campaign. I was one of 4 marketing directors. The idea came from the agency.
Mhm.
Actually, the story goes that my president told her daughter, she had a period that she didn't want to play basketball, and she said, like, you go up there and you play it like a girl. And that kind of, the agency caught up, and the campaign, became one of the most iconic campaigns for women empowerment, for the
Mm.
fact how brands can use their voice. I think there's 250 million views. Forbes rated it just recently one of the 10 most influential campaign. And I can tell you, as one of the directors, I'm of course very proud of the business results, but I'm
Yeah.
a mom of 3. Okay. I have a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And my youngest called me, that was a year ago. So almost 6 years after the campaign first launched. She called me from school all excited one day. Mom, you won't believe it. They're showing you ad in social studies. And
Wow.
I can tell you, every time I give a talk about this,
Yeah.
there's girls that told me how much it's changed their life, or so that was my career in P&G. And my book, which you see, Dare to Lead Like a Girl, I'll get to that in a bit. The name, it's not a book for women at all. I'll talk about that a little bit. It's for women and men, but it's, a provocation using a homage for that campaign. But why I wrote the book and, my story, 17 years, my career just went from strength to strength, right? But it wasn't until I reached the lowest point of my career that I kind of realized the importance of leading with passion. I'm going to tell you a story of two tales, okay, that I also share in the TED Talk.
Yeah.
Very early on in my P&G career, I had an incredible boss, James Lafferty, a close friend and mentor until today. But 6 months into the role, I was kind of in his office. He was my manager's manager, okay, the general manager. And I was in the office because one of my launches hit a wall. Long story, I worked really hard for this campaign. The product got stuck in the customs. Everything got screwed up. I was so angry and so frustrated in that meeting. Now, I don't know about you, but when I get frustrated, I tear.
I have a heart on my sleeve. I'm with you.
And it's scientifically proven. Men deal with frustration with anger more often because that's what they've been socialized. Women deal with tears. And I'm sitting there and I'm crying. I tear really easily, okay? I'm crying and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the office of my general manager crying. And I kind of frantically try to regain my composure. And Jim offers me a box of tissues. And when I kind of calm myself down, he looks me dead in the eye. And Ryan, he says something I'll forever remember. He told me, Dalia, don't you ever be embarrassed for crying in the office again. Yeah. It's a sign of your passion. And Dalia, passion is your superpower.
What guy?
Wow. Yes. And, then he added, and if you ever work for someone that doesn't appreciate that, walk away.
Yeah.
They deserve you.
Hey, my friends, thank you for being with us so far. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I just wanted to take a quick moment to let you know about our signature Heartprint coaching. Our Heartprint coaching is for you if you're ready to go all in on becoming a heart-centered leader, ready to go all in on doing more of what you love, ready to see what you are capable of with support, guidance, and accountability. You're ready to go on a rapid, transformational journey that will change your life and others in as little as 3 months. Are you ready to show up with courage and share your gift with the world? Ready to start making an income and more impact by doing what you love? Ready to start leaving your legacy where those around you are left better than yesterday? In our Heartprint signature coaching, in our time together, I'll help you lead from your heart set. I'll help you develop other people and your team. I'll help you bring your heart work to the world. I'll help you start leaving a legacy and capturing examples of your impact. I will help you be someone you love, to do more of what you love, and to serve people that you love. It's an amazing opportunity for someone who's ready to go all in and be a heart-centered leader. I'll throw in loads of other bonuses, including your life languages profile, access to our Master Heart and Mind membership, and even some Always Better Than Yesterday merchandise. Head to abty.co.uk/coaching to find out more, and I look forward to connecting with you very soon. That's abty.co.uk/coaching. Here we go, back to the interview.
So that was kind of my beginning. And for the next 17 years in P&G, not only was I able to kind of live in flow and work on what I love, I also had managers that believed in me, sometimes more than I believed in myself.
Yeah.
But after 17 years with P&G, I left. Okay. It was almost like a divorce because I loved P&G. Reality was we moved with them to Singapore. My husband opened a big, startup. It was doing really well. They suddenly wanted me back in Geneva. We left as friends. All was good. I took a role as CMO Asia, a huge role, huge promotion. 100 people around the, Asia. I was brought in to completely change the company to be more consumer centric. Marketeers' dream, right? However, 1 month into the role, so I love the CEO and I love the global CMO, and everything seemed amazing. 1 month into the role, I got a new direct manager, so the local CEO for Asia. And man, it took me a week to realize that him and I water, and water and fire, or oil on water, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, I was all about people and creativity and passion, and he was all about numbers and scorecard and ROI. Most days it was ROI or you die, right? And just I think it was my first week working with him, and he's like, Dalia, I'm not going to tell you what you're good at. I find it a total waste of time. I'm a Six Sigma black belt, and I will help you focus on what you need to fix. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lovely, right?
Something you need to fix, which automatically implies that something's broken.
Exactly. And not he went out of his way to show that it was broken in any way. I mean, he said to me, I don't believe there's any art in marketing. It's all science. You just didn't get it yet. And when I tell it to a marketer, you understand it's like a dagger in the heart.
Yeah.
All my strengths that P&G 17 years, I was one rated. There was something working there, right? Suddenly they not only weren't appreciated, but they were diminished, right? So I was too good with my people. I was too positive. Miss Kumbaya was my nickname. What was it? I was too creative, which means I wasn't process driven enough.
Yeah.
So get the picture, a match made in hell. But the story that really that I also tell in TED, that was really the trigger moment, and in a weird way that pushed me to write the book, was 6 months into the role or something. I was summoned into his office, right? He liked to summon me from a different meeting, and he started giving me feedback. Okay, you have a heart on your heart. I love feedback. I love it. We used to call it tough love in P&G, which is the right way to do feedback. There's no sugarcoating. Give it to me straight, right? I like direct feedback, okay? But feedback that's given from a position of care.
Yes.
And I can tell you there was no love that day. It was only really tough, denigrating, humiliating, belittling. And I'm sitting there, and I'm now a C-suite woman, right? The only woman, one of the only two women in a team of two. So anyway, I'm sitting in his office and I'm holding it in. Dalia, C-suite woman, hold it in. And then he moves to humiliate my team. And Ryan, that's when I became a lioness, because I was so frustrated. I knew how hard they worked on it, right? And when it comes to my team, I got so angry and frustrated because how unfair it was that I started to tear. Now, he looked at me and he smiled and he gave me a box of tissues. So for a moment, I had this warm, fuzzy feeling, right? Remembering my first boss, Jim. And I was sitting there, and suddenly I raised my eyes and I noticed something really weird about his smile, almost evil. And then he turned around that tissue box, and that's when I couldn't believe my eyes. On the other side of that tissue box, he created a handmade sticker which read Dalia's tissue box. He was prepared that he's going to humiliate me and make me cry, and that was a game to him. And when I tell it, I had one time 1,000 people in Facebook, they all went, right? So it's like when I do live session, it's like, that was exactly my reaction. I went, are you kidding me? This is an HR assault. Kind of leans back and he said, oh, Dalia, stop being so emotional. It's just boy banter. I know you have a sense of humor. So that was it. Now, I'm not I'm a feisty little one, okay? I was a competitive gymnast, an army platoon commander. For me, quitting is not in my vocabulary, whether it's good or bad. I said, I'm not going to quit. Why should I quit? He should. And so this dance of death started for 3 years. First year I was determined to coaching. I came from I know to manage up, I'm going to give you feedback and we will find our way to work together. And, the more resilient I became, the more coaching I became. He told me, I'm not to be coached, basically F you. This is who I am, my way or the highway. And I realized, that was the first time I realized you can't coach someone that doesn't want to be coached, right? And so second year, that's the fight, the first year, right? Second year was all about flight. So literally I started avoiding conflict in a way, as open-minded as I am, I believe conflict is a opportunity for connection through curiosity. But in this case, there was no curiosity.
Sure.
So I hired a data scientist that gave him all the data that he needed, and I was doing my stuff, and trying to kind of at the end of that year, we did deliver our results, but I felt physically sick.
Yeah.
I literally felt that I left my heart and my art in the workplace, in the doorway, sorry.
Mm.
That was so frustrating. And I think the trigger moment was the beginning of year 3. I attended a P&G alumni, okay, so my previous company, and I walked in and I heard all the leaders talk about servant leadership and take care of your people and the business takes care of itself. And Ryan, I remember I walked in and I literally plunked myself down in the seat and I said to myself, whoa, I've become a frog in boiling water.
Hmm.
This is bullying. It's the
Yeah.
first time that I really determined to myself, this environment is toxic,
Yeah.
right? I'm not able to change it. I'm not willing to change myself beyond the values. I need out. And that's, but I wasn't going to leave before I bring my, everything that I committed. So we created a campaign, very data driven, also very creative. That one on Effie, and that's when I knew I got my mojo back. And
Yeah.
people ask me, why did you stay 3 years? Okay. And I still ask myself sometimes, like, would I recommend my daughter to stay? Right. And, there's a lot of reality. I was the main breadwinner. My husband was opening a startup, but I really loved my team and what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I think one of my biggest learnings, and I actually ended up researching, I actually did my master's on research is me search.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Can you coach yourself out of a toxic environment? That was my research question.
Mm.
And my answer was yes or no.
Yeah. It
So,
depends.
yes, you can build resilience.
Yeah.
Okay. And I became an organizational psychologist focused on positive psychology. And I have a whole model that I work with in the book. We'll talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that on how we should build resilience.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer. I wouldn't quit immediately. I would try
Mm.
and work on yourself and see what's your lesson. Okay, what can you do to grow? But put a time limit on that, 6 months max.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you're asked to change beyond your value, it's not the right place for you.
Yeah.
And when it comes to really toxic environment, I found there's only one strategy that works, and that is zero tolerance.
Mm.
If you ask me what I didn't do well, I was too empathetic. I thought I can change him. I thought
You're
I
an
could change
optimist. I've read your
myself.
book. You're an
I'm an
optimist.
optimist, right? So I kept on saying, and that's sometimes the issue when I say dare to lead like a girl, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about it. Sometimes it's not only about the positive
Yeah.
feminine
Yeah. Yeah.
call. I didn't step into my angry,
Yeah.
Ryan. I didn't
Yeah.
step into my assertive to say, sorry, sir, but you will not
Yeah.
talk to me like that.
Yeah.
I'm
I
going to leave and come back when you're ready to treat me to respect. So that was my driver. That was my career. The tale of two cities. It was tough, but I really believe we all have pain sometimes.
Yeah.
The question is, what do you do with it? So I decided to learn from it and share my learnings.
Well, I'm grateful that you are, and the legacy and the impact that it's going to have for generations to come is probably something that you may not even realize in this lifetime. It's going to be that profound. And I have a 7-year-old daughter and myself, and I truly want. It's really interesting. I come from a background where that like a girl was almost a put down for young boys, let alone for what it meant for a girl. It was almost put down for young boys. So
Think about language. You don't have balls. What are you, a pussy, right? The
yeah,
whole
exactly.
my French, but
So, yeah, no, all good. So being able to have some form of language that I can now impart in my daughter to flip the script. And I think you use the words to reclaim that phrase as well. It's really powerful and empowering. So really appreciate that. And I think one of the things you alluded to then was about shadows. And I was reading your acknowledgements in your book, and I love the fact that you included your tissue box boss in your acknowledgements.
Mm.
Why did you do that?
I did a podcast very early on. So In 2018, when I left and I started studying, I was invited to talk in a women's conference. That was a pivot moment because as I stood there and my emotions were raw and a crazy standing ovation, in the audience was Professor Tal Ben-Shahar,
Hmm.
who's Harvard's guru for positive psychology, who was speaking in this conference, right? And he came earlier to hear me because we met the evening before. And he was the one, he's like, Dalia, you need to speak on TED and you need to write a book. And I remember I like,
Who,
me?
me?
My stories are any girl next door. What's so interesting about
Yeah.
that? He said, that's why they're so relevant. You know, you
Yes.
have a lot of academic people, okay, or people in the trenches, but the combination of people in the trenches, the academic knowledge, the practical of being a coach. So he was the one that planted that in my head. And then I went and, studied with him positive psychology, taught it at the university, Singapore Management University. I'm an organizational psychologist and coach,
Hmm.
so also
Hmm.
very practical. So I try to create something that's kind of very, very practical. But I was once in a workshop, actually with Tony Robbins, where he encouraged us to write a gratitude letter to someone we don't like.
Yeah.
That was part of my healing journey.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, what? And I
Mm.
sat there in the room. It was in Perth, Sydney, Perth, Australia. And I remember I literally kind of really struggled with this task.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, I was on a podcast and the guy asked me, what would happen if you actually met your boss? And I was lost for words. And I think the first few months I had a lot of anger, right?
Mm.
So I wasn't in a gratitude mode then. But through the healing journey, look, I mean, he gave me a story that enabled to do a TED talk, right?
Yeah.
And he was the driver. Now I know it's weird for me to say I don't, it's not about him in any way. And it's really important to put that aside. People ask me, did he say sorry? No, he didn't. He's not here. He's not, I still sometimes dream that he sees something and he recognizes something in himself, but I realize it's the same me that's trying to coach someone that's, he has his journey, my journey, through learning what not to do, through that shadow, and the mirroring in the team. That's also a crazy thing when you have and later I went and I studied that and I realized, whoa, do you know what percent of employees experience bullying in the workplace? Any guess?
Too many.
Too many. It's between 20 and 50%. It's
That's
crazy.
crazy. That is
It's
crazy.
crazy.
You wouldn't expect that in a playground, let in our workplaces.
Exactly. And we do so much for that in schools and playground. Your daughter's 7,
Yeah.
and we accept it in the workplace because
Yeah.
the person delivers. Fear creates results short term,
ROI.
short term,
Sure.
right? At the end of the
Absolutely.
day, look at my leadership team. Out of 14, 7 were fired or left. That has a cost.
Yeah.
I also, there's a lot of research on the shadow effect of a bully. Even after they're gone, the toxicity, okay, is there for up to 2 to 3 years, okay, because people start mirroring a leader's behavior. On the positive side, they mirror a positive behavior, but they
Yeah.
also mirror a negative behavior.
From,
And you create such deep-rooted cultural code
yeah.
that takes years. I read somewhere that it's, the cost of, retaining a bully is 10x, versus spending more of that money hiring the right people. And until today, it's a great company, great values. They did
Yeah.
take action, but too little too late. And I think the incredible thing is that it's so easily solved,
Mm.
with a zero asshole promotion strategy.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
simple,
And
you
it's
know.
really interesting, isn't it? Because maybe you'll be able to share some of your organizational consultancy, your psychologist perspective. But my simple understanding is that we're social beings, and if we as a society value position and status and rank and respect, then we are instantly looking to those as examples of what does it take to succeed here.
Yeah.
So by nature, the byproduct becomes, oh, that's what it takes to succeed.
So we start behaving like that. And
Mm.
my peers were decent people, but we allowed ourselves language and behavior that was totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
Okay. And no one stood up for one on, because if you did, and there were a few that did, they got shut down like crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
the divide and conquer. I mean, there's a whole strategy there for, bullying. But I kept on thinking, how come P&G that didn't have that many bullies? And when
Mm.
I think about it, we had a very simple strategy. So you would get a rating for building the business. Okay, obvious. How are you delivering against your ROI? But you got a second rating to what are you doing on building the organization? At the lowest level, building the organization is building your skill. And
Mm.
later, as a brand manager, is coaching and training your team. And later, training, award abroad. And how many projects are you doing that are beyond your immediate kind of helping make the organization better?
Yeah.
And in talent review, we would review the actions and results on building the business, but also on building the organization. And if you weren't top rated in both of them, you would not get promoted.
Hmm. Hmm.
So simple.
Mm.
So simple,
And
right?
yet, my background in policing, so often there's be the cases that we reward the ones that are really good at their job,
Right.
not the ones that are really good at helping others be really good at their job.
Because sometimes, okay, in most cases, take care of your people and the business takes care of yourself,
Yeah.
of itself. In the long term, that's a strategy. You invest, and we in P&G, we were taught invest 50% of your time in building your people.
Mm.
Okay, don't try and do it yourself. Learn how to delegate, learn to build skill. Okay, so that later on, when they are fully on, you can take bigger and bigger
Mm.
responsibility, right? The thing is, too many companies, they see the short-term results and ROI that comes from fear.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
fear is not a long term strategy.
And it justifies all the shitty behavior.
Yep. Yeah. So, I'll tell you, it's funny. So I was kind of writing my own story, with this triad that I mentioned. Okay. Storytelling,
Hmm.
because what comes from the heart lands in the heart. People remember
Hmm.
stories. The science, okay, because I want this book to be as relevant for high emotionally
Hmm.
storytelling, but also for the left brain. So right brain, left brain. And then what do I do about it? So I'm a very practical person. I want anyone who read the book to have like almost a manual. If I want
Mm.
to understand my purpose, what do I need to do, etc. But this kind of whole thing evolved when I understood how sad we are in when bullying in work, and the outcome of that is clear. We're seeing Gallup shows us 87% of employees are unhappy in the workplace,
Mm.
believing they work for companies that don't appreciate them as human being. 20% of employees are so unhappy that they make everyone around them unhappy. That's the toxic employees. 20% of employees are toxic. They're not in the right place for them, they're not managed in well, and they just make the organization toxic. And that has a cost. It's
Do you know the
huge.
greatest thing I realized as a young leader? The greatest thing I think I realized is that 87% you just referenced, they
Yeah.
go home to people.
Ripple effects, the
Yeah.
why, the children, happy parents, happy kids. That's my philosophy for
Yeah.
parenting.
Yeah.
Always been. I was a working mom. For me, when I was happy, my kids were happy, my family was happy. A happy
Mm.
wife, happy life. Whatever you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
go there. But families, extended families,
Yeah.
co-workers, think about it. And it's showing, it's ugly. I mean, it's coming out now. So before COVID,
Mm.
we knew the data showed, so 87% is one data point. I went crazy when I saw 1 in 4 employees was experience acute work-related anxiety, okay, to the level of mental health. 1 in 4, that's insane
Mm.
because of work, right? You
Yeah.
know? And now with COVID,
Mm.
everything's accentuated, right? And we're seeing it with the great resignation. And the thing that kind of, for me, it wasn't a surprise, but for the world, it was quite a surprise. There was this incredible research by the father and son, January 2022, it came out, and they were trying to understand the Great Resignation. Okay, 24 million Americans left, 40% are claiming they want to leave in the next year. And they were trying to understand the reason: burnout, pay, right? There were all these kind of dynamics going on. You know what the number one reason was? This: toxic environments.
Yeah. Powerful.
Awful.
Powerful.
Now,
If
I'm an
only somebody
optimist.
wrote a book to solve all the problems.
So exactly. And I can tell you um, why, there are things out there. And ended up kind of being my catalysator, because I'm an optimist and I've
Mm,
seen that you can turn it around. So the cost of this toxic environment, research shows they estimate it as $7 trillion globally. Okay. So when I come and I teach happiness at work and I come to CEOs, I remember one of them told me, Dalia, happiness is fluffy. Show me the
mm,
money. And I'm like, dude, is $7 trillion fluffy? The good news, and that's where I come in, right? The good news is that we can teach ourselves to be more resilient. We can raise awareness. I want potential bullies to see my TED talk and say, I don't want to be a tissue box,
yeah.
boss instead.
Yeah.
And when did I realize that? When I did my TED talk a few months later, I got thousands of calls. Okay. I got
Yeah.
calls, I was shaking like crazy before doing the TED, but I kept on thinking of the one person that will make a difference.
Yeah.
And there were thousand. One woman that, women that decided to stand up for bullying, to make
Mm,
to dare in general, to make their life better. Men, like you said, reclaiming the phrase. I had one guy call me all excited that every time someone cried in his office, he would be really embarrassed and didn't know what to say. And he's like, wow, you gave me a playbook. The
yes.
next day, a girl cried in one of my employees cried in my office, and I just looked at her and I said, "Wow, I see you're really passionate about it. How
Mm,
can I help?"
come on.
And right, tears a
Yeah.
sign of passion. It's not a weakness. But the craziest call that I got is from this guy in Australia, and he said to me, total stranger. He said, "Dalia, I just wanted to say thank you. I watched your TED talk. I realized that I'm an asshole. What do I do
Oh, yeah. Hands
now?"
up for that.
Then hands up. And today the guy is amazing.
Yeah.
He works with organization on a he tried it on himself, being nice, and he saw what a change it made
Mm,
for business results. Forget anything else. So he inspired me. And actually, in the book, in the first page, I
yep.
say, if
Yeah.
you are a boss that's an asshole, that you want him to get the book, 100 books a year gift from me, just write to me. I'll send it anonymously. So I don't know if it will eradicate assholes world around, but I'm
It's your
hoping
reformed
that
asshole program I saw.
it will.
It's powerful, and I guess let's be. I mean, a huge encouragement for people to go check out the book for the detail and the stories. But I just love to know the hallmarks of what it means to dare to lead like a girl, because I think there's two things, isn't it? It's to empower the woman to lead that way herself, but also the empowerment to the man to create the conditions for that to be possible as well. So, what are some of the hallmarks of leading like a girl?
Okay. So, I mean, the book is based on this, research by Harvard Business Review.
Mhm.
In 2012, they tried to understand how come we don't have more women in senior roles, or women not as effective as men. And they found, yes, women are as effective as men. In 2019, they repeated the research, and in this time, they found that women weren't only as good, but they actually scored better in 17 out of 19 leadership traits.
Good.
Things that people think are naturally women:
Yeah.
empathy, intuition, teamwork, but also things like risk taking and innovation, etc. Why this change? The women didn't change during this time. The environment, the work
Yeah.
environment changed. Okay, we're working remotely. If you don't have empathy, you cannot lead. The command and control model just doesn't work in the future of work. You can't innovate when you don't have empathy, right? Because how do you understand unmet consumers' needs?
Mm.
Pivoting, the whole world work environment has completely changed. Now, I say this, I quote this research, it really is not. And once in an article, I said, I'm not a feminist, and so many people jumped on me. I'm not a feminist in the sense that I think we're better than men. Completely not. There's no such thing as a female brain or a masculine brain. We both have within
Mhm.
us female leadership traits and male leadership traits. The issue is socialization made some more acceptable. So when a female acts in the same way, assertiveness, they say she's bitchy. And I had so many men saying, oh, you lead like a woman, in an insult.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to kind of my
Bossy.
provocation there, right? My provocation there is, guys and girls, wake up. The environment has changed. Okay.
Yes.
And in this environment, we all, men and women, need to connect to those more feminine leadership traits. And that's what
Yes.
dare to lead more like a girl. And pragmatically, I call it the 5P model. So very, I know you read, but just very quickly for the audience, I try to simplify it. We need models. I come from marketing, 5P of marketing, 5P of, leading more like a girl, which basically means leading with your head and your heart. So the first one is purpose. The first P is purpose. That's the begin all and end all. This is about connecting to your strengths. This is about my story in P&G. Why was I a rock star? Because I loved what I was doing. It wasn't a job for me, right?
Yeah.
I was working, hours didn't matter because I was on fire. So, find your purpose. And my favorite workshop that I do for companies, Microsoft employee wrote to me the other day, I'm so grateful for Microsoft for doing this. And I have CEO tell me, what? My employees will realize that they want to be monks in the Himalaya and leave. Very rarely does someone want to be a monk in the Himalaya. But so often, especially in the big companies,
Yes.
you can find what your passion is and do it within, what you're currently doing, with a little twist and an alignment with your line manager. So that's number one, finding
Were you by any chance telling them that they need to do Wim Hof and do some ice baths?
that comes later.
Yeah.
I'm a big Wim Hof fan.
Yeah, likewise.
So I haven't done one of his tours, but I follow him religiously, and we have a ice bath.
Amazing.
We started in COVID actually, and
same.
we've been doing it. It's incredible. But that's the third P. I'll jump to that P actually.
Okay.
That's all about your physical wellness.
Yeah.
So, and this is something women don't do as well. Okay. In the
Yes.
sense of, we need to take care of our energy.
Yes.
It's not about managing time, but men as well. Men don't ask for direction, don't ask for help, and they die more often from heart attack. Okay. So the physical element is taking care of the basics. Your body is your temple: breathing, eating, touch, recovery, movement. So that's kind of the physical. So the third P is really about perspective. Okay. Yeah. And we think, I call it the 3E model. There's an event and an emotion. We think we're reacting emotionally to an event, but actually there's something in the middle called the evaluation of that event, our perspective of that. Often we get, right? Remember, you get angry with someone and it had nothing to do with you. Your evaluation of the situation was totally wrong. The glasses you chose to wear that day. So that's understanding growth mindset, your failures, your best opportunity. How do we create post-traumatic growth? Everyone knows post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's actually 3 times more common to have post-traumatic growth, which means actually not only do we bounce back, but we actually grow higher. So I talk a lot about that in the book. The fourth P, and probably the most important and obvious one, the number one driver of happiness, is people. The quality of our life is the quality of our relationship. So what can you do as a leader, whether you have a team of one, which is you, because leadership is leading yourself, and how do you build self? Something called self-fullness, okay? Fill in yourself, your jug, so you can fill in up others. And how do you deal with others? And then the last P is around positivity. And, Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, says his regret is calling it positive psychology. Positivity is not about being happy all the time. It's about giving ourselves the permission to be human. I call it emotional bravery. We all hurt sometimes. It's okay not to be okay. Who doesn't have bad emotions? Only psychopaths or dead people. So if you're sad, that's great news. Okay. So, but as a leader, how do you make space for that? How do you, let an employees grieve or whatever's going on, and then help them slowly create the upward spiral of positivity through instilling hope and gratitude and everything kind of that can lift us up. So that's the 5P with a lot of stories, a lot of tips. And I'm so excited you read it. And I can't wait to, for your listeners.
Do you know what? And I think, there are people out there that, like myself and many people I surround myself with, that have a heart for wanting to bring out the best. And I think great leaders will understand the mosaic and the tapestry that we all can contribute to, but maybe aren't quite equipped to know how. And
Mm.
there's an intellectual world that is so wrapped up in trying to say the right thing, do the right thing, and the kind of litigious kind of
Yeah.
society as well, and not wanting to do the wrong thing and not wanting to get HR involved, and it gets in the way of connecting with human beings and having. And I truly believe that if you can connect at a heart level with people,
Yeah.
whether you're a man or a woman, there's a
Yeah.
big bubble of grace that says, I'll be okay with your clumsiness if
Yeah.
I get the sense that your heart's in the right place and that you care. And I love now that good people have a playbook, as you say, to try and navigate some of that jungle.
Remember, the emotional bank account. That's what it is.
Yeah,
How do we build the emotional bank account? And I had amazing managers that, because we had this emotional plus, right? We invested in relationship, getting to know your employees as people, as human
yeah,
beings, in
yeah,
together, rollerblading together, water skiing, right? And everyone fucks up sometimes. It's
yeah,
normal, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's how we fail forward. You learn to fail or you fail to learn. And a
Mm,
leader that doesn't understand that, right, and scolds you for your failures, you will never try again.
no,
So
no. I love the sound of your happiness yacht retreats as well. They sound wonderful.
so when I left, and I started studying, that was one angle that I wanted to take CEOs off on retreats and kind of, and today I do some of that. So most of my work is working with hardcore corporates, the
Yeah.
Microsoft, Google, Facebooks, but doing it really fun. And your retreats is one. We also, together with Tal Ben Shahar, we created a game. It's called Happiness, Up Your Game at Work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's a way of kind of bringing all the learnings in the book, into the workplace in a fun, engaging way, but very, serious play, right? So you get to solve daily challenges using tools from the world of positive psychology. And I'm super enthusiastic about that.
Yeah. Well, I
So
think it's
I'm trying
powerful,
my
isn't it?
different, right? I'm trying my different ways to make an impact. And I'm really grateful that, so many people, there's a sense of movement, but, you know, that's where we can just continue, you know, talking about it. If you feel that resonates, I would love people to buy the book, share with me what they think, send it to anyone that they think they needs to get it, either anonymously or non-anonymously. And, I think we all can do our best in throwing those little stones to create the ripples, one by one.
Mm, I love that. And just before I wrap up with my final question, I think one of the things that I absolutely love is there's a lot of talk out there about psychological safety.
Mm,
Psychological safety, the foundation of great teams. I have a theory that it's bigger than that. I think the thing that creates psychological safety is unconditional love.
mm,
And I think, I think without stereotyping too much, I think women and parents in general are very, very good at that
yeah,
because they've learned what it means to unconditionally love a little human.
yeah,
And I think, one of the things I absolutely love is that parenting is quite possibly the greatest form of leadership. You know,
complete.
the service, the sacrifice. But what often we forget is this play based living that you talk about,
Yes.
so as a
And
way
that's
of
why,
regulating and,
people ask me, why did you call it Dare to Lead Like a Girl, not Dare to Lead Like a Woman? Right?
Mhm.
It's the homage to the campaign, right? But it's also about going back to our authentic, original self before socialization kicked in,
Yeah.
okay? And our core, our raw kind of experiences. And yes, I'm completely, for me, being a parent was like, I always say, you want work-life balance, have kids, because it gives you perspective. It gives you, you need to go home to something important. And there's some that decide not to have kids, that's fine. Find something outside of work that you're passionate about, that forces you to have a life, right?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I think it's a great example. If we all unconditional love, and I also would say that it's actually also grounded in research that the authenticity that comes with admitting mistakes,
Yeah.
that builds psychological safety.
Yeah.
We're able to say, I as a boss maybe have more experience, but I do
Yeah.
not know it all.
Yeah. It's funny. I've read some things, particularly in a policing setting, you think we don't want mistakes. And then, you have leaders that admit mistakes, which then the ripple effect is that other people feel brave enough to admit their mistakes too. So if we're
Yeah.
looking at scorecards, well, since you've admitted mistakes, we've made more mistakes. No, just the
No,
ones for the last 10 years have gone unreported.
exactly. That's what Amy Edmondson shows in her book, actually. And
Yeah.
when we don't report the mistakes, that's when, I mean, she talks about hospitals and people are dying
Yes.
because they're not admitting mistakes. So, creating an environment. I remember walking into Google back in 2017 in Palo Alto, and on the wall they had a graveyard of failed initiatives. And each team had to create a graveyard and say how they failed forwards. I thought that was a brilliant example.
Powerful. Very,
Yeah.
very powerful, because it demonstrates the words intellectually. It's okay to fail,
Yeah.
but then I get beaten up in my one-to-one versus you live what you speak. That's really powerful. I'm conscious of your time.
Yeah.
A minute ago, you said about ripple effect, and you give a real touching tribute to your friend Vanessa, and hope that her children read the book as some way of carrying on her legacy. The word I use to describe legacy here at Always Better Than Yesterday is heartprint. I really believe that when we lead with heart, and care and emotion and compassion, we leave a little heartprint in the lives of other people who then go on and do wonderful things that we may not even become aware of. I just wonder what you think your heartprint will be.
Well, thank you for reminding Vanessa. She wrote with me the chapter on women in the workplace. She's an HR
Yeah.
manager. She unexpectedly died when giving birth to her two daughters, so they never met them.
Tragic.
It is, and I'm still recovering. That was exactly, the book came out exactly for her year, and I can't wait to go to Singapore to meet her three kids and her husband and give them
Yeah.
their personalized copy. But what is the heartbeat? I've been getting these amazing notes. Everyone, my hope is that everyone gets what they need to be brave, and that's why I called it Dare.
There.
I think Dare, bravery, is a really important word, and it's the most misunderstood word. People think courage means making decisions that others don't, but courage comes from the French word cœur, which means heart. So I hope my heartprint is for leaders that they understand that real courageous leaders lead from the heart, and that it's okay to have fears. We all have fears. Okay, anyone who tells you that they don't is lying. We all have fears. We all have pain. The question is what we do with it. Courage is really having those fears, stepping into your superpowers, and then daring. So hope that will be it.
Dalia, I admire you. Thank you so much for all that you put out into the world, and thank you so much for your time.
And thank you for your huge heart. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for making it to the end of the interview here on YouTube. I hope that our time spent together has left you a little bit better than before you push play. Before you go anywhere, please leave a comment down below, some of your key reflections, your key takeaways. I love hearing from you and what this conversation has inspired in you. Let me know what you're going to do as a result of this conversation. I will be back next Wednesday where I will share another inspiring guest. To make sure that you don't miss that, please do subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as soon as it goes live. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organization, please do visit alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com, and it will be my honor and privilege to help you in any way I can. Keep leading, my friends. I've been Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast here on YouTube. Always love.